Me and my mic every time. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, there we go. All right. All these things weren't showing at first. This wasn't there. All right, here we go. Hmm, let's see. Trying something new tonight, guys. Let's see if it gets out there. Trying this streaming software. Pardon me. So that I can go live simultaneously on Facebook and YouTube.
All right, you are on Facebook.
Sorry, guys. Let me know who's in the house. Say hello. Please help me out. I'm using a software where I can stream to both my YouTube and Facebook live at the same time. And if you're with me on Facebook, if you're joining in from Facebook, uh, say hello. Thank you. Say hello. Working out these kinks. I'm not that technical. Mm. Okay, I'm not sure if I like this streaming software. I don't get to see who's coming into the room. Mm, okay, let's see. I think I'm gonna need to look. Oh, it's not coming up. Okay, all right, guys. Well, I'm gonna have to be looking at my phone here to see who's checking in. All right, hey, bestie. Give me a second, y'all, while I get situated here. All right, I'm using a streaming software again where I can stream live to both Facebook and YouTube at the same time. And so everything kind of appears in one screen, and it should be telling me when you guys are chatting, but that hasn't shown up. So I've got to look at the phone and look into the computer as well. All right. Up. Hey, Tristan. I'm so goofy. Anyway, good evening, good evening, good evening. Happy Thursday. Yeah, happy Thursday. Happy Thankful Thursday. Yeah, I am really excited to be on tonight. I'm always going to keep it real. So I'm still nervous. I'm still nervous. This is, yeah, gotta, gotta breathe, gotta breathe. All right. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. Bessie, how you doing? Oh, This is very interesting because I can see the lag while I'm looking back at the phone. This is something. Anybody that knows me knows that I am not very technical at all. Oh yeah, Friday, Friday, Friday. That is amazing. Got you an early start to the weekend, to the weekend. Yes. Hope you're gonna be staying inside somewhere because it's hot outside. Hot out there today. But this is episode 4, My Trauma Healed Life. And this is the end of self-betrayal. And tonight we're talking about self-betrayal as it relates to within romantic partnerships. Yeah, romantic partnerships. Some of these things that we're going to talk about tonight really could apply to any relationship, but we're going to focus on the romantic partnerships. So, just to give a little bit of background about myself, I am Tracy Nicole. I am an intuitive life purpose coach, a quantum energy alchemist, a medium, and I am a passionate advocate for victims and survivors and thrivers of all types of abuse trauma, childhood trauma, physical, mental, sexual, emotional, psychological, financial, spiritual, all of that. I'm a survivor of domestic abuse, interpersonal relationship abuse, and I'm also a survivor of military sexual trauma. Y'all probably think I'm crazy saying all that with a smile on my face, but baby, I'm free and I aim every day to stay free. I am not chained to my past. I am not the things that have happened to me. I am not. So I think I want to start out with a little story about intuition. Because when we're talking about self-betrayal, self-betrayal is when we do not listen to that still small voice on the inside of us. When we don't listen to what some people say, listen to your gut instinct. That's intuition. I first discovered intuition. Of course, I didn't know that's what it was. I didn't know that name, any of that. But I first discovered my own intuition when I was 8 years old. From 2 months old to 8 years old, my grandma Cozy, was my caretaker. She took care of me while my parents worked. And then when my parents divorced when I was 2, and my dad joined the military, and so he went away, my mother was nursing. Was a nurse. My grandmother continued to take care of me, and while my mother was working, things of that nature. At some point in around 3 or 4 years old, my mother met who would eventually become her husband. And in that summer when I turned 8, right after I turned 8 and finished the school year, my mother had decided with her then boyfriend to move us to another state. We left Indiana and we went to Georgia. They went ahead first. I had school to finish out for that year, and then my mother sent for me, and my grandmother took me to the airport. And at that time, because now they don't allow you on the gates and stuff like that to walk people to the gates, after all the things that have happened with 9/11. That doesn't happen anymore. But back in the early 80s, yeah, early 80s, they allowed the guardian to escort an unaccompanied minor that was flying all the way onto the airplane. And so my grandma Cozy escorted me onto the airplane. And I'd already told her I didn't want to go. I said, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave you. Can I just stay here? Live with you? No, you can't. I'm not your mother. Your mother wants you there. Okay, what can I say? I'm 8. So she gets me onto the airplane and gets me over to my seat, and I have a window seat. In a window seat. I don't even know if I sang that right. But anyway, get over to the window seat, and she helps me get buckled in, and then she's goes back into the aisle, and she's kind of leaning on the seat, and she's kind of looking at me as I'm getting settled, and she's saying goodbye. And I look at her, and I'm like, please, just take me off the plane, take me with you. I don't want to go. And she said, baby, I can't do that. You on here. So she walks off the plane. And I remember as she walked off the plane and I watched her walk away, this just, I don't know, this, not even quite a sickness, just this real, just deep, empty space. All of a sudden, I just kind of felt within my inner being. I felt it in my stomach. I felt it in my chest. And then when she finally got off, where I couldn't, see her anymore, I turned and looked out the window. And as we taxied down the runway and got ready to take off, I said to myself, this isn't going to be good. That was that still small voice of truth at 8 years old. At 8 years old. I was 7 when I realized that I could feel people's true feelings despite what their face looked like and despite what they told me. I could feel people that were in emotional pain. I could feel people that were in physical pain, and I could tell the difference. I didn't have words to describe the emotional pain, but I could feel people when they were hurting. And I could tell the difference if they were hurting because their stomach hurt or their knee hurt or their arm hurt. And I could actually tell which part of their body was hurting. I never told anybody. I didn't think people would believe me. And I kind of didn't want anybody to know. I would just find a way to go and touch the person. Like if their shoulder was hurting, I would just go over and, find a way. Oh, can I give you a hug? And I give people a hug, or I just put my hand on them. Try to make them feel better. When people were smiling and yet they were angry on the inside, I could feel that. And it was confusing. It was confusing for a long time. That was my deep empathic ability that was just naturally there. That was that guess it came online early. So back to being on the plane and that gut instinct. I also felt from my grandmother. I could feel that she really did not want me to leave. And then when that gut instinct said, this is not going to be good, it wasn't. Because my um, because of how I was being, raised for those first 8 years, with mostly being with my grandmother. My grandfather, her husband, passed away somewhere when I was about 3 or 4. I barely remember him. So for those next 4 years, my grandmother was single. Well, she was single all the way forever after that. Yeah, she never remarried. She stayed single. She stayed single for a very, very, very long time. Um, but I didn't see her in any type of romantic relationship to have an example. And my dad was off at the trainings and military and so forth on, so I didn't see him in any romantic relationships. And for a very long time with my mother, I did not see her in the romantic relationships that she was getting into as well. During those first 8 years of my life, until I got to Georgia and joined my mother and her boyfriend. At that time, he was her boyfriend. And at that point, my very first experience of how two people in a romantic relationship interact. That was my first experience, was with my mother and her boyfriend, and it was violent. The first experience that I had, that I saw, that I witnessed, was of my mother as she was very early pregnant with my younger brother. I saw her get pushed down a flight of stairs. She managed to catch herself. She would fall all the way down. That terrified me. And that was my first experience of what a partnership, a commitment, a relationship between two people who say they love each other and have chosen to be together. That's what it was like. As time went on, I continued to see that abuse throughout the entire time of my childhood. From 8 years old, at that time, all the way on up. Eventually, they got married. About the next year or so, they got married. And I continued to see and witness those types of physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse. And I was taught to keep quiet about it, act like it didn't happen, take it out on someone else. Hmm. stay in the relationship. Those were things that I was taught by the behaviors that I witnessed. My mother's reaction, and mostly my mother's, because I was looking at her. I mean, I was a daughter. I was looking at my mother. Later on down the line, as I got older, I grew into adulthood. Well, prior to that, there was an occasion when I was about 10 years old and I witnessed a very horrible beating from my stepfather onto my mother. And I determined that night within me that I would never, ever let a man put his hands on me. I swore if a man put his hands on me, I would kill him. That was what I swore within inside of myself at 10 years old. I didn't understand the emotional abuse that was happening within that relationship. I didn't understand, I didn't even understand the verbal abuse because it was all the time. So it was normal. It was normal. I didn't see, I mean, I felt that it was wrong, but I couldn't see and comprehend that it was not normal. Like I thought that's just what happens because I didn't have any other examples other than the one that in my home. So I swore that night that I would never let a man put their hands on me. When I got older and I got married, I would never let a man put his hands on me. And if he ever put his hands on me, if he didn't die, I was out. I'm not staying. There is no coming back. There's no nothing. So that's how I continued throughout my childhood growing up. That was something that I put inside of me at 10 years old. At 19 years old, I had a moment where I experienced in a relationship, a romantic partnership, while I was in the military, where my boyfriend at the time put his hands on me, picked me up, threw me across the room. Yeah. I landed on the hard tile floor, hit my head, hit my hip, and he had grabbed me with such force that he'd actually ripped skin out of my back. And that thing that I put in my head at 10 years old came back. I got up and I fought for my life. He ain't dead. I ain't killed nobody. Thank you. Because I really wouldn't have wanted to have that on my conscience. But I did get out of that situation Then I didn't go back. The morning after that situation, when I went to my command in the military, they sent me over to family advocacy to give me counseling, have me get medical attention. It was a lot going on. And when I walked into the family advocate counselor, she had a stack of two manila folders filled with papers so much that the stack was this high. Okay. She comes in and she just drops them boom, on the metal desk, makes a loud thump. I think she was trying to be dramatic to try to get it through my head in case I was going to have any inkling to try to go back to him. When she comes in and she drops that file, those papers, she goes, "So I see you met Mr. So and so." I'm gonna put his name out there. And every last one of those pieces of paper was filled with reports of physical abuse against his ex-wife. She explained to me all those things. And I don't remember all the stuff that went on with that conversation, but needless to say, I had already determined I wasn't going to be with him. I didn't want to be with him before that. I was actually trying to break up with him. Yeah. And that brings up the point of self-betrayal. Now, this isn't like, oh, I'm blaming myself for what he did. Hey, when a person does what they do what they do. We're talking about self-betrayal because you don't want to keep repeating the same mistakes. You don't want to have the same experiences. You don't want to keep making those same choices that get you into those patterns. And you must realize the patterns, even the ones going back to your what you've seen. People call them generational curses. I determined earlier today, I don't like that word generational curses, because it's like somebody put something on you and now you can't get it off of you. It's a pattern of behavior and a pattern of thinking. And I want to break those. And I want to help other people break those patterns. I want to help other people love themselves. The opposite of self-love is self-betrayal. It is the not listening and following the still small voice of truth inside. And it's okay. We all have to get to a point that we first realize that we even have that still small voice. And then we have to get to the point of where we trust that still small voice. And then you have to put that into action. Not just saying it on the inside, oh, I trust myself. Actually putting it into action. Standing your ground, standing firm, standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, healing the things and realizing the areas that you need to evolve and grow. And doing it all with compassion. So where I betrayed myself within that relationship, that domestic violence that I just spoke about, there was a moment when that boyfriend was at my home And I remember I was getting ready for my work week, and I was ironing my uniform, and my back was to him because that's just how where the cord or whatever was set up that way in that home. And he asked me something. He said, "Do you love me?" And I knew that I didn't love him in the way that he was asking. And because I was an honest person and I don't like to play with people's feelings and emotions, I told him, I said, "Well, I have love for you, but I don't love you in the way that I think you might want me to." And I turned around when I told him that so he could to face him. And he looked me in my eye and he was so still. And he said, "As long as I love you, you gonna love me." When I tell you the chills went everywhere, every hair on my body stood up, I was like, oh no. What in the world have I gotten myself into? Let me hurry up and get out. And so I actually broke up with him. But being where I was in the military at that time, where I was stationed, I was on a new base. It was very, very small. The base itself was large, but the amount of people on the base was small because it just opened up. One base had closed down, and we opened up another one. And so what that means is almost everybody knew everybody. So we broke up, and I went on about my single business and had my friends, and we would keep doing whatever we was doing. But a few days after we broke up, he started calling my friends. 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, all hours of the night, of the middle of the night. Ask me, "What's wrong? Why won't you get back with me?" And they're telling me this, and I'm feeling pressured. They're like, "You need to do something." I don't know what to do. I've never been in a situation like this. And hello, I did the thing that I said I was going to do if something ever happened to me that I witnessed long before. I didn't have an example of what to do when someone does that to you or talks to you in certain ways and says those things to you. I didn't have an example of that, of how to handle it. I didn't have a healthy example. Let me put it that way. I didn't have a healthy example. So I betrayed myself because I listened to some other people who said, "You know what? You're getting ready to uh, transfer out of here anyway in a couple weeks." Because it was a couple weeks before I was supposed to transfer that I broke up with him. I was like, "Nope, I'm not doing it. No, 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 no. You crazy, and I don't want no parts of that." But I took him back knowing good and well that I wasn't going to keep him. I just wanted him to leave my friends alone so that they could stop looking at me crazy. I could stop feeling like the oddball, feeling crazy myself. I betrayed myself because that still small voice inside of me said, F what everybody else is saying. I mean, back in that day, on the phone, when they just started having a voicemail, I know some of y'all remember this, how if you had 10 messages on the voicemail, you didn't have it where you could just press a number and delete it in the middle of the message and go ahead to the next message. You had to listen to the entire message first in order to then delete it and go to the next one or do save it, delete it, whatever he's going to do with it. This man left me I came on one day, there was 18 messages on my phone. I said, oh my God, 18 messages. Who has been calling me? I had to go through 17 messages that were all left from one person, from him, to get to the last message, which was a message from my father. 17 messages where he played the song Boys to Men, End of the Road. So he wanted to play the whole song out, and it took 17 messages for him to play that whole song, because that whole song was all over 17 messages. Crazy. So I got that going on. I got that going on with my friends. You know, the people on my in my command were getting wind of it. And I was on my way to leaving active duty as an enlisted member to go to school for 4 years, ROTC, to then become an officer. I had gotten accepted into an officer training program. So in the military, you don't want nothing on no record like that. You're trying to be an officer. And especially as a woman. And a black one at that. So to try to calm everything down, I thought that I could just take him back. It's only 2 weeks. And I actually made a plan with my friend to get to the airport without him knowing. And then 2 nights before I was supposed to fly out, he threw me across that room. Hi, Latoya. Never late, never late. Now, I don't know if he would have done anything else or tried to do something else or tried to find me on the street, attack me on the street. I don't know if he would have done any of that. I have a feeling he would not have, because I realized that he was very, 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 very private. He did stuff behind closed doors where no one else could see. And in front of everyone else, he was this calm, cool, collected, quiet person that everybody just thought was calm, cool, quiet, and collected. And in fact, he was not. I betrayed myself, that still small voice. I cared about everybody else's opinions more than my truth inside. I allowed fear of losing or tarnishing my good military reputation. I feared tarnishing that. And I'm not going to even lie, that was with good reason. Because I did eventually get on to go to where I was going at my next command, because I did have a command, even though I was in college for ROTC. When I checked into the command, they literally asked me to drop the charges against him and to let it go. And I had a woman telling me that. So now, not only did I betray myself, in my own still small voice. Then I had to betray what I wanted I had to betray standing up for myself and taking action for myself against an offender. Because she told me that it's looked down upon. How does being a victim look down upon? I didn't throw him across the room. And I wasn't the one with a stack of reports. But I had that fear of my reputation being ruined. And so I went back into that. I didn't know how to love myself and stand up for myself. Because let me tell you something, let that be today. I can't say what I want to say because I'm on live. But I would have told that officer exactly what she could do with that advice. Because today, I know how to listen to my still small voice of truth. I'm in tune with me. Fear of the unknown will get you every time. Fear of the unknown will get you every time. It will limit you. It will keep you small. It will cause you to make choices that go against something that is actually in your best interest. It'll keep you from experiencing adventures later on in life. Fear of the unknown. When in fact, every day we do things that we don't know what's going to happen after we do them. We go places, we go apply for a job, and we bust through that fear of the unknown. You think you know what job you're getting into just because there's a job description, but you don't really know everything. You don't know all the people there. You don't know the culture. You don't know the environment. You don't know everything. We walk into grocery stores every day and it's unknown. Just because it's Walmart, just because it's Winn-Dixie, just because it's Kroger and you know the name, you're still walking into unknown territory because you don't know who's in there. You don't know what they got, what they're carrying. You don't know nothing. So we do things all the time of the unknown. So when you have a decision to make about something of yourself, something that is self-loving, where you're taking care of yourself, you're putting yourself first, you're putting your needs first, you're protecting yourself. Don't let the fear of the unknown cause you to betray yourself. See, we got a few people on. We'll take a pause for a moment. Take a little breath. Light a little sage. And are there any comments, any questions? I can't really tell who all is on. I see Latanya. I see Nigeria. I'll give a quick second because I think there's a little bit of a lag. I am kind of hot. This light is hot. No comments, no questions. All right. We're going to talk some more tomorrow. On tomorrow's live. We'll be moving, still talking some more about self-betrayal in relationships. And tomorrow we'll be talking about ways to, there we go. Ways to love yourself unconditionally within your partnerships. I'm going to move on to the next experience. The last experience happened when I was 20. The next experience happened about 20 years later. Still connecting with generational patterns, things that you've learned from growing up and viewing the relationships that were around you, the romantic relationships, the partnerships around you, whether it be your parents, aunts and uncles, your friends' parents, whatever. In about 2014, I think, 2014, 2015, after going through a lot of psychological counseling, mental health therapy, did lots of different therapies because I definitely experienced PTSD from all the things that I had experienced in my lifetime. And when I was 30 years old, I made a conscious choice to take control of my life and not allow my experiences in childhood with abuse and all of the continued psychological abuse up to that point from my mother and my stepfather, decided to take control of my life. And it was literally on my 30th birthday. And heal. Do whatever it was I needed to do to feel better, to do better, to have a better life, to do better for my child. By that time, my son was about 12, I think, 11, 10 or 11, somewhere around there, 10. And I had started counseling at 30. Then came on up through, had some intensive therapy. I experienced, I can't even think of the names of the therapies right now, but went through a lot of different therapies. And I'd gotten to a point where I had healed a lot of the triggers and things that I was experiencing and learned. I don't want to say heal them. I learned how to properly manage them for myself, to cope. Some. And I got to a point in my life where I felt like I was finally ready for the marriage that I had wanted ever since I was 10. And I went to counseling specifically to prepare myself for connecting with that mate, whoever that person was at that time, because I didn't know it. I didn't have one in mind at that time. Didn't have a person I was dating at that time. But I started into counseling, learning about interpersonal relationships. And that was about 2000, end of 2014. And I was doing that for some time, still going through different therapies for PTSD. Can't really see this painting behind me right now because of the angle of this camera, but that was art therapy for veterans that experienced PTSD. And that was a freehand painting that I did, an intuitive one at that. Maybe I'll share it later. But I went into this counseling for interpersonal relationships, and I was in the counseling for probably about a good 2 to 3 years. And when I met who is now my ex-husband, when I met my ex-husband at the time, I just thought I was ready. I mean, who wouldn't be ready? I've been in counseling from 30 years old to at least 40. Who wouldn't be ready? You would think. I thought I was ready. Now, I didn't think I knew everything. Don't get me wrong, but I thought I was ready to begin to date with the intention of uh, finding a relationship that will lead to marriage. I think that was my first snafu. That's for another whole different type of conversation. Um, Somehow I had the concept that being married was the epitome of the highest status of a relationship. That it's not a relationship unless you're married. But in fact, the real commitment comes before you actually say I do. You should. But anyway, I met him online. I wasn't much into going out and where I was living at the time, and it anyway. I just wasn't much into going out where I was living, and I met him online. We talked for a while, and one of the things that I had decided that I wanted, because one of the things that my therapist had me do was write a list of what you want in a mate. And we really went through that list now. She didn't just have me do surface stuff. We really dug deep. And one of the things that I said I wanted in a mate was someone who had been through some things. Because I've been through a lot in my life that I had come to understand helped to make me who I was at that time. All those experiences were me. And I had dated in the past people who didn't quite understand. They didn't understand me. Just keep it plain and simple. They didn't understand me. And they probably wasn't trying to be dealing with traumatized Tracy. Because for a long time, I was still walking around in victimhood, even though I was not a victim to anyone at that current time. So good for y'all. Anyway, I wanted someone who had been through some things. And I wasn't very specific. I just wanted someone who had been through some things. That was what I was thinking at the time. So, meet this guy online. First We're talking for about 2 weeks or so. Really good conversations. We take it offline pretty soon because I don't like all that texting and stuff. He said he didn't either. So we're talking, we're having conversation. We're having very, very good conversation. We are, talking about things that you don't normally talk about that early on. Mm-hmm. We ended up meeting in person about 3 weeks after we met online. And we met at a park that was by a bay. We sat on the bench on a pier. And we sat there and we talked for about 4 hours. And because I wanted so much to be understood, I felt that I had to explain myself. I am a very open and upfront person. But I felt like I had to tell him where I'm at in life and some of the things that I had been through. And so we started talking and we're talking about those things. And then he suddenly has something to tell me. And he tells me that he had wanted to wait until we talked in person. He kind of feels bad that he didn't tell me when we were talking on the phone. And he proceeds to tell me about an experience in his life that in that moment, I didn't feel he was completely telling the truth. I had that. And I also had the feeling that I should not share so much information. I had that feeling, and I should have shut my mouth, and I didn't. I betrayed myself. I didn't listen to that still small voice. I wasn't being selfish, wanting what I wanted. I was operating out of how I had learned to behave in relationships from what I'd experienced growing up. So we proceeded. And I pushed that still small, I didn't even push the still small voice aside. I said, "Boop, get out of here." That's what I did. I said, "Get out of here." Mhm. And that led me into a relationship where we dated for almost 2 years, about 3 months shy of 2 years before we got married. There were things that occurred, which some of these things I will actually talk about probably tomorrow, maybe not tomorrow, Saturday. There's certain situations that I do want to discuss. But certain things happened in the very beginning of the relationship, in the first 3 months of the relationship. But because I'm the type of person that sees the good in everybody, because I realize that we are all both light and shadow. Some people say light and dark. No one's perfect. Everyone has lied. Even me, a truth teller. So nobody's perfect. I was good for rooting for the underdog, or what people would consider the underdog. I wanted to help people. I wanted to make people happy. So I wasn't being selfish. I just saw the light on that deeper level. I saw the light, but ignored the truth. Things seemed good, even though certain things happened during those first 3 months. It wasn't like it was constant things. It was like one thing per month. And I felt, okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk things out. Let's talk about this thing. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, let's talk about this thing. What's going on here? Okay, talk about this thing. What's going on here? Okay. We would talk about things, get to a point that I thought was a satisfactory resolution. Didn't realize that I was actually dealing with a pathological liar. Because he had lied to me at that first meeting, he had to continue to do things throughout the relationship that required him to lie. He had to keep lying about things so that certain things could not be found out. He had to keep the lie going. And that is the reason why I don't lie. Because I can't remember. I cannot remember. So I don't lie. Because I would get caught very quickly. He had to continue on with those lies. There came a point in time when we decided to get married. That I still went against that still small voice. Because by that time, I put in so much work. I was thinking about what I had done. I put in so much work. We were living together. He had his daughter and my youngest son in the home. I felt like it would destroy things if we didn't continue to move forward. And then on the other side of that, I felt like this is what we were supposed to do. Like relationships are, you take work, you got to work at them. You don't give up. And not to mention, I'd watch my mother go through much worse and stay forever. And I really wasn't going through too much at that time. So I thought. We get married, it's beautiful, I'm excited, da da da. A few months after we get married, purchase a home. purchased a home. The day we moved into the house was a great day. And the very next day, he changed. Now, there was already some things going on, but I mean, it kind of felt like, okay, I mean, nobody's perfect, like I said, but he changed. I realized later on it's because he got what he wanted. He literally wanted to have a stable home. And it was not something that he could actually provide for himself by himself. But we're married. So I'm thinking we're partners. What's yours is mine, what's mine is yours. Let's get with it. Why we gotta play games? We trying to, we trying to elevate. We trying to grow. That was my thought. He changed. And it was to the point that a friend of mine noticed and said something to me. But what could I do at that point, right? I mean, heck, we just got married. We hadn't even been married 6 months. Okay. But I could have done something. But I didn't. I chose to keep going. Let's try to get settled. A few months down the line, well, actually 2 months after we moved into the home, he became very comfortable with a lot of the things that he had been hiding from me since day one, such as friends. And trust me, I'm not that type of person that's like, oh, you can't have female friends. You can't. I mean, we were in our 40s. So who am I to say, oh, you got to stop dealing with your friend of 30 years just because she's a woman? No. If you can't respect the marriage, then that's on you. And that's a choice that you make. And that was my belief system. And that part still is. Because you can't make anybody do anything. People gonna do what they do. So I find out about said friends. I feel devastated. I feel betrayed. It was awful. Much more awful than I'm expressing because I'm trying to move along. It was August of 2019. When I betrayed myself in one of the most hurtful ways to me. Because this was not an occasion where I flicked my little still small voice to the side, where I said, no, get out of here. No, I sat with that voice. Because that voice said loud and clear, get your ish and go. Figure it out. But this has to come to an end. I'd always said that cheating in any fashion, not just physically, emotionally, carrying on an emotional relationship with someone To me, that's cheating. I was devastated. And I had always said, and actually, this was a boundary that we had actually placed in our relationship, that if cheating occurred, that was the end of the relationship. So if you cheat on me, that lets me know you don't want to be in this. But see, I was dealing with somebody who was cheating from day one, and I didn't know it. But when August 2019 came and I became fully aware, I didn't just ignore my still small voice. It was loud. And I made a different decision, a different choice than what my intuition said to do. And I still thought I was doing the right thing. I still thought I was doing the right thing. And then guess what? A year later, the same stuff came back around again. Along with a bunch of other things. Because me not holding to that boundary that I had set, that we had set, he said it and I said it. And I didn't hold my part. So what that did was that gave him power. Because he realized that, oh, well, if I did all this and she's still here, and this was the big thing that she said would end it, well, I could do other things. They got even more comfortable and started doing a whole bunch of other things. I betrayed myself. I was too busy loving him more than I was loving me. And not just him, but his daughter as well. I had gotten into this pattern of feeling sorry for him and therefore trying to protect him and his daughter. And it was literally all based on the very first lie that he had told me when we had met 2 years prior. Now he did what he did. He lied, everything. Yep. But we're talking about self-betrayal. So the second time this came around, I did leave. I left, took a break so I could think clearly. I'd already asked him to move out. He refused. Well, he didn't quite refuse. What he told me was it was going to take him 6 months. I didn't feel like we had 6 months. I didn't feel like we had 6 months. I could feel the danger coming. And there had been instances in which he had actually attacked me, but he had never put his hands on me. So I didn't view it as something abusive. But putting your body on someone, bumping them, running into them from the back, blocking them from exits. Let me tell you something. That's the same thing as having hands put on you. And let me be clear, is why Streams has connection issues. I don't know which one. Oh, I got disconnected again. I have to figure this out. I don't like this, guys. It's the second night in a row. You know, stuff like this always happen when they don't want truth to be told. The energies, but it's going to be told. It's going to be told. We'll wait a couple minutes and try to see if we can get back on here. I'm going to try to remember where I was. All right. So I don't know if everyone is still here. I don't see other people that were there. Well, I guess they'll jump back on. Sorry, guys. I'm going to keep going because I'm already over an hour. Okay. So sorry about that. I don't know what happened with the video. Sorry about the disconnection. Hopefully you guys come back. You're still here. Okay. Well, I think I'm having an issue with Facebook, and I think a lot of people were there for Facebook. Go over to YouTube, My Trauma Healed Life, all one word. Pull up my channel, and I'm there as well. Let's see if I can. I'm not going to go through all that because I don't know what I'm doing. All right, guys. So let's get back to where we were. Sorry about the internet connection. It's probably this stifling heat. It's probably burning the cables and the fiber optic. Anyway, where was I? Talking about how I left for a while, for about 6 weeks or so, and to give myself time to think clearly out of the situation. Oh, I already said this. I remember. Thank you. Sorry, they brought it back to me. This is what I was getting ready to say. We're talking about putting hands on people, on your partner, and that it's not always the hands. We're talking about putting your body, blocking ways, blocking exits, blocking the person from leaving, chest bumping, very, very hard from the front and from the back. Those are things I experienced. And I want everybody to understand that there is no male bashing here because that was my husband. Because women do it too. Yeah. Those things are abusive. Restricting a person's freedom of movement is abusive. Putting your body and chest bumping them and knocking them across a room with your body is abusive. And then saying, oh, I didn't touch you with my hands, then there goes psychological abuse. I wasn't going back to that, so I didn't. However, I left my house that I bought with my youngest son, and then my son who had just been injured and had a life-changing injury, was in a wheelchair. I, as a single woman, took my 2 young men and left my house out of fear. Now, in hindsight, I can't even say that I would have done anything different, because I was terrified. I felt like somebody was going to die in that home if we didn't part ways ASAP. And the year before that, he had done the very same thing with chest bumps to my back. And I happened to have one of my healer friends just happened to call me about something that we were supposed to be doing together. And I was frantic. I had managed to get out of the house and I was in my car and I didn't know what to do. And at that particular time, we were home by ourselves that day. Kids were at school. Nobody was around to see anything. Matter of fact, they really never were. And that friend told me when he called, he was like, well, what's going on? What, are you okay? No, I told him what happened. And I didn't feel, though, I didn't feel like I was in danger. I really didn't. Nothing on me was hurt. I hadn't got knocked down to the ground, but I did get knocked a few feet, but I stayed on my feet. And I left. I went on ahead and, hey, you knocked me that far. I just kept on going right out the door. Jumped in the car, left, riding, went pulled over somewhere because I was crying. I was upset. And the friend said, we have to find you a safe place. You need to get out of there now. And this is a friend that knew that we had just got married. As a matter of fact, he had bought us a nice wedding gift, this really nice grill. In hindsight, I wish I had listened to him then. At that point, I wish I had listened because I actually had support. But what happened was I didn't listen and I went silent with the things that were going on. I didn't tell people. I told a few things. I talked to my bestie about a few things. I talked to my cousin about a few things. I talked to an aunt about a few things. But I never really told them the abusive things that were going on. And I was betraying myself every single time. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to hurt his daughter. I didn't want his family to be upset with me. Everything for everybody else. I smiled and put on the happy faces when we went out. Same thing I saw my mama do. And when I couldn't gather the strength to put a smile on my face, I backed out of stuff. I'm not going. I don't feel well. And I wasn't lying about not feeling well because I wasn't. I was under so much stress and pain, stress and pressure. It was bringing pain to my body like nothing I had ever felt before. Always at the hospital, always at the emergency room. And not because I was being knocked down, not because hands was being put on me, but because I was being psychologically, emotionally abused. And I was betraying myself. If I had spoken up, I would have had support. I felt like people wouldn't believe me because I was one of those people that only posted the good things on Facebook. hmm I was not living authentically. So now I left, right? Go on, few months, we're separated, somewhat trying to see if we're going to work things out. I went to a whole nother state. Came around that May, and I was still gone. I left officially the beginning of October of 2020. Okay. Came on around. By the time May rolled around, I was like, I really don't think that we're not going to be able to, we're not better to move forward. And I really didn't. I really didn't want to. I really didn't want to. But I was so distraught from all of the different things that had occurred and the way that leaving had uprooted my life and my two sons' lives. Not to mention the impact that it had on, my extended family and friends. But that May came around. And he did something again. He couldn't reach me, to touch me, to chest bump me. But I still had my things back at my home where he and his daughter were staying. He threw things away of mine that he didn't need to touch. They weren't in his way. I moved my things so that out of the way. I said, this over here, these things, these are my things. Just, they're fine. Don't touch them. Are they in the way of anything? No, great. He threw them away and then called me to brag about it. In the psychologically abusive way that he'd done so many things. And that was the day I said, there is no trying to work anything else out. I said that within. I felt it and I heard it. And this time I listened to the still small voice. Gave it some time, about a week or so. We had another conversation. He admitted that he realized that what he did was wrong. And he tried to, talk, because what I did was I went quiet. I went off on the phone, told him, don't touch no more of my stuff. I'll be down there on this date. Don't touch anything else. And then I went quiet. He's calling, texting, didn't say nothing. Didn't answer a call. Because I was not going to be manipulated back again into hearing the sob stories. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I'm in pain. Oh, what was me? Yeah, I want to hear all that. You ain't getting me with that again. So after about a week, when he finally called again after a week, I decided to answer it. Because he was coming with making some sense at that time. He said, I want to talk. I owe you an apology. Oh, okay. Now let's have a conversation. I let him go through his apology. I listened. And it sounded genuine. It sounded genuine enough that it could have made me think twice about what I already knew inside. But I'd made that mistake too many times already, and I wasn't going to make it again. So I told him on that day, I appreciate your apology, but I want a divorce. He was shocked. He was so shocked I didn't hear from him for a whole nother month. I actually had to call him and say, hey, are we getting the divorce that I said I wanted? So moving forward, we filed the papers that year of 2021. Well, before we filed the papers, we had to sign the papers. When I went back to where he was so we could do the divorce papers, we had decided we were just going to do this amicably. And that's what I thought. I mean, that's what we talked about. He said he just wanted to be just kind and smooth. Just, let's just make this smooth. I believed him. Sometimes a still small voice comes to you in just the way that you feel in your body. It may not even be a voice that you hear or thoughts that come to your head. It's just where you feel in your body. And I felt very anxious when he was trying to be so calm. I was picking up on the real truth. But I was so trying to be still so kind and not, cause a problem. A lot of it, I thought it was because of me. So we go back to the home, which he was like, yeah, come and stay here for the weekend when you come to sign the papers, so forth and so on. I'm like, okay, all right. He's all nice and kind and everything. I had been asking for mail that he was supposed to have been looking for me for months, because my mail was still coming to my home where he was at and I was not. Asking for mail. Not getting my mail, and he can't find anything. So when I get back to the home, We signed those divorce papers on June 18th of 2021. And it just so happened to be the day that we decided to enter into a committed relationship. That was an actual anniversary date. 4 years later. Signed the papers, and the next day I'm leaving. And we've made this agreement that he's going to stay in the home for a year so that his daughter can finish out her senior year. Oh, Tracy's so sweet and nice. Yeah. Betraying myself. While I'm there, I asked him, after we've signed the divorce papers, I asked him, where have you seen any mail? I'm looking for this. I'm looking for that. And I'm talking about things from like the Social Security office, things from the VA, okay? Important paperwork that I've been looking for, that I'm needing. No. Well, lo and behold, I go and I find the paperwork. At one point while he was gone, I find my mail that I've been looking for in several different places that he had hidden them because he had opened my mail and hid it and then lied. And I still said, okay, I'm just gonna stay calm. I'm not gonna be upset. I'm just gonna say, hey, from now on, could you please not open any of my mail? Just screenshot the envelope, take a picture of the envelope and send it to me, please. That was what I wanted to say to him. I was literally on my way out the door. The bags were in the car. My son and my grandson were waiting for me. We were getting ready to leave. And I asked him to come into the bedroom for a second where the mail was. And I asked him to come in here and I said, hey. He looked, I pointed, directed my hand at the mail. I said it like this. I said, hey, I found, my mail that I've been looking for. And some of these things have been opened. And these are important things that I needed. And I said, from now on, can you not, and before I could just say, could you not open my mail anymore? He did the very thing to me that he'd been doing several times over the last several of those years. He rushed me like a football player, fists balled up. He rushed me while he's screaming something. I don't even know what he was screaming. And he chest bumps me with his whole body and pushes me backwards into a desk where I'm back and I snap back. My head, my neck, head, everything snaps back. There's a whole lot of things that came after that. I managed to dart around him, get out into the living room, which was nothing but children in the living room. His daughter and her friend, my son and my grandson. And I was so afraid is not even the word. I was so I was in fight, flight, or freeze mode. And I was frozen. I was standing in the middle of the living room screaming my head off. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? And then he continues to taunt me. And I couldn't move. My son is trying to protect me. The only thing I could do was tell him, no. No, but my feet were frozen in spot. He continues to keep his fist balled up and buck at me like he gonna hit me. To the point that his daughter got up and came and got in front of him, put her back up against his chest, and stood strong. And he's pushing up her, making her, having to push her feet into the ground and stand firm. And he looks at me this one time as he's screaming, arguing. We're going through an argument. I don't even know how in the world I'm arguing in my frozen state. But I was. And he bucks again from behind his daughter, and I flinched and jumped. And then he looked me in my eyes with his fist still balled up, with a nasty snarl on his face. Damn near was foaming at the mouth. And he looks me in my eyes and he says, "You ain't got to be scared. I ain't gonna never put my hands on you." In that moment, all of a sudden, I felt and heard like it just went clink, 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 clink. Came up from my root, from my tailbone. Clink, 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 all the way up to my head. And all of a sudden, inside, I was like, bing. I was like, what? Oh my God. Because he also said, "I know what I'm doing." And it was that "I know what I'm doing" that caused me to finally have this, all of a sudden, the whole dark cloud of confusion was lifted. And I was like, oh my God. He's known all this time what he's been doing. Now, we've been in counseling together. Talking about these things that he'd been doing. And while we were in counseling, he acted like he didn't understand what was going on. He acted like he didn't understand what was wrong with it. He acted like he didn't know. And the whole time, he knew. It was Juneteenth, June 19th. And that was the day that he actually set me free. He was both my mother and my stepfather wrapped in one, which was a narcissist, true narcissist. Stepfather, a narcissist, true narcissist. They were both narcissistic and codependent. Both my mother and my stepfather. It's just my stepfather was a lot more narcissistic than my mother. And my ex-husband ended up being both of those wrapped in one. Today, I'm actually thankful for him. I needed to have my mind freed. Yes, narcissistic behavior, Latanya, you know. I needed to have my mind freed. Now, it was painful. I was distraught. I was distraught. Managed to get out of there without what I thought was further harm. That woke me up. That woke me all the way up. And once again, I made another decision of what I would never let happen to me again. And I said, I will never let that happen to me again from anybody. And how I'm going to make sure it never happens again, I'm going to search within me and I'm going to find out what I got going on that I keep attracting all that bullshit. Because how in the world do I end up at 20, at 40 years old, experiencing the same things that I watched growing up and said I would never let happen? Because there was so much that I was learning just from being in the environment of the patterns of behaviors that I was picking up and learning the things. Listen, you can learn things without somebody telling you, hey, don't do this and do that. You learn from watching, you learn from feeling, you learn from hearing, you learn from all your senses. You're picking up things you don't even know. And then when you've been psychologically abused as a child, the entire childhood, and you don't know that you've been psychologically abused, because I actually didn't understand the psychological abuse that I went through in childhood until I started dealing with the psychological abuse that I went through in my very short marriage. But I said, I'm going to love myself. Because I was actually on a self-love journey right before I met him. I started on a real self-love journey. It's so funny because Facebook bring up these memories. And there were memories that was coming back from 2016, which was a year before I met him. And I see the post that I was putting out there. And it was about loving yourself and loving yourself and loving yourself and loving yourself. And then all of a sudden, I stopped doing that in order to love someone else. Self-betrayal. So I started on a very, what became a very, very intense and fast-paced healing journey back to my authentic self. It took a lot to correct the choices that I had made. I can't really say correct it because it's not like something was right or wrong per se. It was what I had to do to repair my life, to build myself back up. Tried to get him to leave the home that was in my name. He wouldn't leave. Because after that situation, of course, things changed. I'm like, oh, now that I realize, now I see what everything is going on. Now I see what's going on. Now I see what you've been doing. Now I see what it is that you really wanted. And we're not getting ready to do this. I want my house back. You need to move. Wouldn't do it. And I was afraid of him, y'all. After that situation, even though I was awakened, I was afraid of him because I was like, oh my God. You went for years in disguise. I mean, years. In heavy disguise. That's scary. Which is why I will never not listen to my still small voice again. I went through a period of time while I was, healing from that situation. And I made myself trust myself no matter what. And at times it was painful because I was so scared that I was going to make the wrong decision because of what I thought everybody else thought I should do, felt I should do. Baby, if I had listened to all that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking today. And I'm not talking today because I want to share my story just so I can share it. I want to help somebody else free yourself. Through loving yourself unconditionally, no matter who and no matter what. There's so much more to this story and to what I want to say, but we're going to have to pick it up tomorrow because we're almost 2 hours in. Yes, Tanya, thank you. Thank you. That's exactly right. My story is meant to heal others. This is a tough spot to kind of pause in. So I actually want to do something that I often do, and that I made a practice for myself as I was healing myself and healing on this deeper level. Unfortunately, conventional therapy didn't teach me to love myself. That actually was never a term that ever came up. But I have a card deck here, African Goddess Rising Oracle. And I want to pull a card, and I just pulled a card, and it's this camera right here. It says, feeling safe. Feeling safe. It says in this guidance here, hold on, y'all. I gotta put on these reading glasses. It says, it is finally safe to be you. You have wandered through a dark night, Your trip has been long. There is light ahead. Your liberation is apparent. To embody that guidance, it says here, you deserve to feel secure. Feeling safe is knowing that your basic needs are met. And remember when I talked to you guys yesterday, I think it was, we talked about that self-betrayal is a lack of your basic needs being met. And that includes emotional needs. We're not talking about food, shelter, and water. It's a lot of clothed, non-thirsty, sheltered people in this world that still don't have the basic needs met. Feeling safe is feeling at home in your body. Feeling safe is trusting your journey. Feeling safe is feeling free around those you love. Not walking on eggshells. Not feeling like you can't say nothing. Not feeling like you can't ask for what you need and what you want. Feeling safe is feeling free around those you love. Those other methods that I just mentioned, those are survival methods. Yeah. That's not really how you keep yourself safe and feel safe. And you're not free in that. Feeling safe is feeling free around those you love. Feeling safe is trusting that the sun will rise again. If you grew up emotionally, spiritually, or physically unsafe, reset your default expectations to a healthier vibration. Reset your default expectations. Default expectations come from the patterns that you experienced and witnessed growing up. Reset them to a healthier vibration. And baby, there is nothing healthier than unconditional self-love. It's something that has to be learned. It's not just hugging yourself, and it's not just saying, oh, I love me. And it ain't going out getting your hair done and your nails done and your beard trimmed and looking all good. That's part of it. That's self-care. That's on the outside. Unconditional love comes from within. This goddess declaration says, I am safe. It is safe to be safe. I'm passionate, y'all. I'm passionate. It's who I am. I want you guys to remember to affirm daily. Get in the mirror and look at yourself and say it until it starts to sink in, until it starts to cause you to make changes for yourself. Say this affirmation: I love and accept myself unconditionally, no matter who and no matter what. Thank y'all for bearing with me. Sorry it was so long. Try to work out this internet stuff again tomorrow. Please join me back here tomorrow because we have some more to discuss. I love you all. I wish you nothing but peace, and unconditional love for yourself and for all. Good night.